Well, you know the story of the necklace in Geneva. You know the story of the credit card in Geneva. We were on the trail of Sharif. And before we knew it, Mr. Mubarak put him on a plane and sent him to Saudi Arabia. We had enough to be able to say, on the back of this evidence, to approach a court and say, prima facie evidence, issue an order, freeze this account. Okay? And of course, if the owner would come and start jumping down, we found the owner wouldn't come jumping up and down. They would telephone NAB and say, these guys have come after me. And then what it would do, the next thing we'll hear, NAB ask us to remove him from the list.
Where did you find these bank accounts of Sharif's where they had kept this money?
I'm not at liberty to say that at the moment because it's in the judgment. But if the judgment is slipped, or if I'm forced to disclose it, then you'll see what Sir Anthony Evans says. One example I give you was in Jersey. We found accounts. Okay, in the Cayman Islands we found accounts. In London we found accounts, and we were moving on to them. In Switzerland we found accounts, which definitely belonged to. We could see that they belonged to either the Sharifs or their alter egos. We could see that. It was quite clear, on the screen we could see that. But before we could move in and attach those, we were sabotaged and we were removed. We had gathered enough evidence to know that there's a lot of assets, but I was holding them back because we'd been sacked in 2003. There was absolutely no need. So if we hand it over to the government of Pakistan, they'd just give it to Sharif. When we gave a hint to them in the process of discussing the arbitration, all that, interesting things started happening. Anjum Dar was sent over to see us, and and I thought, isn't this a coincidence?
The Sharifs had denied him. They said they have nobody with this name in their family.
Well, I don't know the Sharif family, but somebody says, I'm representing them, you are going to an arbitration against them, we're interested in settling this arbitration, and you say, okay, come and see me. And he comes and sees you, and you say, well, can you show me some credentials? He shows some photographs of himself with Nawaz Sharif in his home, embracing, and he gives you detailed information about where things are going in terms of the litigation, and he also says, look, you know what, I'm going to give him a call right now and talk to him in front of you. And he does, okay? It wasn't a video phone, it was an ordinary phone, but I've heard Mr. Sharif on television, on speeches and all this sort of thing. I must say the voice sounded terribly like Nawaz Sharif to me.
The Sharifs, how did they know? Because all your dealings were with NAB, and whatever you had found against them were only known to you or the NAB. So how did Sharifs got to know that you had this evidence against them which could come up again during the arbitration?
Well, it's a good question you should ask the Sharifs and you should ask NAB. It's part of my accusation against NAB. They were leaking like a sieve.
Mr. Imran Khan has recently made a comment that based on your claims, he said that this broadsheet expose is new Panama Papers. Have they come into contact with you? Have they contacted you and asked you to work with them and recover more assets for the government of Pakistan now?
2018, we believed we were having a conversation with them, and Shahzad Akbar confirmed to me. He said the intermediary had come and seen them and taken documents and all that. And in good faith, we did actually draft a new contract because I saw that Imran appears on the face of it to be serious. And I actually know Imran. Unfortunately, it turned out that crooks inside found out about it and they tried to suborn us. They tried to shake us down, saying, yes, we will ensure that you get a new contract, but you know what, you've got to pay us a cut. And I ended the conversation there and there. That was the meeting at the Café Rouge in Hampstead, and I just, thank you, but no thank you. This is not the way we do business. I'm rapidly losing patience with some of the ministers of Imran Khan. I believe he's personally a man of integrity, but whether he has the ability to maneuver and survive that minefield, I know not. What I do know is, yes, we agreed to cooperate further with further investigations. He's an Oxford man, I'm an Oxford man, and Oxford men talk to each other.
And the opposition parties in Pakistan are alleging that this particular person who had asked you for a cut was Mr. Shahzad Akbar himself. Is that true?
No, categorically not. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Shahzad Akbar did other things that were wrong, but he didn't do something that is criminal.
Is there a possibility that at some stage when you come into contact with them and you agreed on something, you can actually hand over the information that you have against the Sharifs to the government?
Yes, of course. But I learned bitterly. I alerted them to $1 billion account. They just ignored it. They just laughed at it. And our lawyers wrote to them, and they just ignored it.
And who was the owner of this $1 billion account, by the way?
Please put that to the government of Pakistan. Say, when Mr. Musavi gave you this information, who do you think it was? It is inconceivable that Shahzad Akbar and Imran didn't know about this account. But at the lunch that I had with him, I told him, why didn't you do anything about this? He said, oh, the source that brought it to us was a con man. I said, the source wasn't a con man. I told you that. He said, oh, you officially told us. I said, our lawyers wrote to you. He actually told me at the Chelsea Arts Club. He said, I didn't know that. I said, what is wrong with you? I mean, do you read your briefing papers? Does NAB report to you? He said, of course. I said, it's in the documents. Our lawyers formally wrote to your lawyers, Alan and Overy, saying, what about this?
What was the agreement? What was the exact nature of the agreement that you had with the Accountability Bureau?
The contract was simple. We haven't got any money to give you to go and find this loot, but if you're prepared to put money up, you can have 20% of whatever you find. They gave us targets, and I absolutely insisted that if we go for these targets, you cannot remove them.
So there was no fee involved in it, apart from that 20% cut that you would recover?
Not
So that means that you must have done your research beforehand, that there was enough money in going after those 200 people for you to, go into this.
It was a risk I was willing to take. I was willing to take and believe that there was big money there.